Are we streaming?
We are live-ish.
We're live-ish.
Hold on. Are we live? We're kind of live. We're debatably live.
Big mood.
You know, the world's a complicated place. I've never said any different.
All right, I got the link. I'm gonna share the link.
Yeah.
And then I'm in there so I can monitor the chat.
I can also sometimes sort of look at chat. Sometimes. We'll see.
All right, I posted a link on my socials. All right, and now we're gonna play this game.
Yeah, it's pre-stream time. Let's do the thing.
Yeah.
Okay, there are different goals now. At some point they added goals. These ones that have the icons in the lower left. Right? These weren't here always.
Okay, so crossing the river at least once with each of the metro lines. Okay. And then all 8 networks. Okay.
All
Times
2. Again, yeah.
The upper left and lower right corners are the double.
Yep,
move corners.
The draw extra lines corners.
Yeah. Okay. Well.
Easy. Here's the thing about this one is it's so easy.
Well, I need to make sure I have room to cross all this.
Yeah, no, that's actually legitimately a little concerning.
But I will yeah, you know what? I'm gonna do this, try to cross that bridge.
That's not what I meant to do. Hey, Amabel, how does a web browser work? How has anyone ever used a web browser?
You are asking the wrong person.
I shouldn't do this, right? I should.
You should what?
I should try to figure out how I'm going to connect to all these different monuments. I'm a little worried that if I do this, we're immediately going to see a wild card, but I'm going to go for it. Okay, not immediately with the wild card.
All right. Are you copying me again?
I think I'll
wow.
That way. I'm copying you before you do things.
No, I've had that locked in.
It's the most expensive copy job in history. I had to invent time travel and then build a time travel machine.
Okay.
It's very effortful, which is unusual for me.
It is. I'm not used to that. Are you okay? I love you.
It hurts a little. I mean, if you were curious.
I'm sorry. I mean, you are incredibly effortful, though, is the thing. Because I don't think people
I do the most. I do.
Some are watching.
I do tend to do the most.
But like the last couple days with your computer stuff, like you have, boy.
I have been packing it in. That's for sure. It has been. Yeah, it's been busy time.
Oh.
Yep.
Well,
it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate timing for both of us.
Yeah. Sweetie, maybe I'm bad at this game. Have you considered?
Wow. Okay.
Oh, again. I'm not lined up for it. Oh, gosh darn.
See, I got lined up for it. I figured that one out. I knew it was gonna happen.
All right. Well, you're so smart.
Yeah, that's a word for it.
It's the correct word.
All right, we have both the wilds now, and the question is, where do we go from here?
Wherever we want. No one can stop us.
Well, that's literally not how the game rules work. So, triangle We're guaranteed a triangle. We might get a circle, maybe. Trying to figure out, like, what is even valuable to do at this point?
Now, are you on track to beat the top score?
Is that a 3 or an 8?
That's a 3.
I think I've scored nearly that high before. Okay, so I have an interesting choice here. I could hit this monument, and hitting a monument, every monument touch is worth 2 points.
Yeah.
But would I be better off just jumping back into this area, because this is my most populated region, because that's a 7-point station there. But if I touch this, like, this is the monument that you're most likely to get all 4 lines onto. It's only a 4-point difference, though. You know what? I'm doing this.
Okay.
We're placing a 5th station in that region. That feels good. That feels significant.
I feel like you're probably doing much better with monuments than I am.
Do I want to see if you? I'm partially tempted to just go up left immediately here, because I want to be ready. Like I want to have that station ready, but it cuts off that overpass, and also just like it puts one of the ends of your line in sort of a dead end spot right away, because you don't really want to draw back out of there.
Yeah.
You want to leave that open for a 3rd line if you can. Yeah, all right. Okay, hey, that's maybe something we could do before the stream starts.
I'm sorry.
It's just real loud.
I'm sorry, I forgot to open it.
You're killing everybody, Amabel. Everyone is now dead. All of the people from Earth.
Oh no!
You remember Earth? Thing of the past.
I love Earth.
That's one of my favorite planets.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's a thing of the past.
Oh no.
Oh no.
I'd really like to pull a square, please. A square would be great. That is not a square.
See, now that we've done that, I'm changing up my whole plan. Now that we have a little switch off, so that I have 2 ends to work with.
Okay, there we go. And that does that, and then that does. Oh, am I actually just gonna go? Yeah, boom. Yeah.
So
that's
obviously we want to cross the river. But I also want to. We have monuments we got to make contact with, right?
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna do something potentially inadvisable here.
Wait, which square is that? Is that the normal square or the
That's the white. The white.
The white square.
Yeah,
okay.
It's a white card.
Okay.
All right, immediately rewarded. The game was like, great job, Salon. Like, she who dares wins. And thus, here I am. I probably don't want to double back into the corner there, so I guess this would be a time to, like... I mean, drawing out to here doesn't do anything. I've created sort of a weird situation for myself line-wise. Whatever, this is good. Yep, and then we draw the wild. This is the last station for this line.
Yeah, that's inconvenient.
Yeah, I was hoping to get a little bit more done. Well, I could just reach back and touch the monument. What else? You touch this instead. This is better because again, it's adding a station to my most populated. Yeah, this is better points wise. Adding a station to my most populated region. All right, let's just throw away the railway switch right there. Triangle, will you?
Yeah.
I guess so. That counts as crossing the river. Maybe I wanna. I hate to not take the overhead crossing, but like maybe I should just do this because like we still have monuments to touch here. No, you know what? I'm gonna do this. We might draw the wild here in a situation where it's not ideal for me, but whatever, it's fine. Still have all of our triangles left. We'll just reach down to this corner and that's a little inconvenient. That could have been better timed. So we're out both wilds already.
Yeah.
That's not great.
No.
Alright, I'm gonna touch this. And then we're gonna split to here. So at some point we're gonna draw a pentagon. That'd be pretty good.
Yeah, Pentagon's good for you.
Pentagon does some alright things. Alright, circle, then triangle, then we're out. Well, I'm not gonna lie. I do wish that those had come up in the other order.
Yeah. Excuse me.
So like we're picking up this station with one of them. The thing is like to draw here and then to pull triangle, I think is like very low value. Right? There's no useful triangle off of any of our stuff. But I guess actually like is there a useful circle? Because hitting a second station in this region doesn't do anything for me. I guess like this is the best thing we could do with that. This is worth a couple of points because it's, you know, just connecting to another color. And then we spend the triangle touching this. And that means I only have one monument left.
Oh, I did that wrong.
As for whether I'm on track to beat the high score, extremely no. That's a good start, though. Yeah, okay, interesting. Okay, so we'll just like run straight down the side here. I mean, that crosses the Seine.
Okay.
It's a plan, kind of. And then I think from here, we're just kind of like tuck it into the rest of the lines. Okay, so that gets us our fourth Seine crossing. It also lets me split somewhere. And the place that I would like to split is Is there a spot where like I reasonably could still get to this upper left corner? Because that would be the most fun thing. Sadly, it takes a lot of moves from anywhere. Like I could run to here, and then I need read the Pentagon, and then like this not happening. It's just not happening. Okay, we got some questions in the chat already. Hey there. Do I read messages on Patreon? Yeah, usually. Usually eventually. I'm sorry, I know that's not a very satisfying answer. I try to, but also, social stuff is challenging for me. So I do try to. If you send me a message on the Patreon, it is likely I will see it. But not necessarily. I can't guarantee how quickly. Apologies for my very great awkwardness. This is actually like this top left corner thing here. Like when this is one of the valuable corners, it's kind of an interesting problem of how to approach it.
Yeah.
Because like the third line in is square to square. That's like, that's not a trivial problem. Okay, we'll just touch this line, this space, because it's got a thing on it. And then finally, we reach up into this corner and we get to double mark one of our things. This one, arbitrarily. It doesn't actually really matter which one, it's just increasing your region density for scoring purposes. And hey, that's what's a 206. That's fine.
That's pretty good.
That's fine.
Yeah, that's
It was a lower scoring map today, it seems like. The top players all like in the 230s and whatnot.
Yeah, I did okay. I didn't do great. I made some mistakes, but a 155 for me, that's okay.
I like the way your purple and orange line are sort of like zippered together here. You get a lot of good like multi-color points.
Yeah, I was trying to, because I never do. Here's the thing: I almost never get those intersections, and they are worth points.
Yeah.
I never get like 4 of them on this map, especially. Now on the Tokyo map, I get a lot more where there are 3 or 4 lines connect, like those 3 or 4 line intersections.
Yeah.
Because of the green line.
Right, of course.
But I don't get that here as much.
Hold on, the stream control panel is shouting at me.
Why?
Because my bitrate is too high. I'm streaming this board game to YouTube too hard. YouTube can't handle all of the lines and circles.
Wow. Did you have that problem before the switch over? With the computer,
no, I don't think so. Listen, I don't know what settings I had before. So we've had an eventful week, computer equipment wise. I had to make an expensive but fruitful trip to the Best Buy. So yeah, I've done a bunch of work on my computer. Amabel's got a new microphone.
Does it sound better?
I think it sounds better.
Okay.
You have a lot less room in your voice,
Good. Yeah, you've been working on it for a long time, and you are so good at your job, and you take it so. I'd say you take it so seriously, but of course you do. but like you have things set the specific way that optimizes for your workflow for your process, and having to kind of reestablish everything. That's a pain in the neck, hon.
It was a pain in the neck. Yeah, Power Mac. I saw that. I have been keeping a little eye on that. Man, I think Endless Space 2 is such a cool game. It's such a cool design. And it's an interesting game in part because it's very complicated, because there's a lot of systems and a lot of ways to approach any problem. And gosh, they created a real nightmare as far as building an AI goes, because like it's very difficult to teach a computer how to play that game. Like the AI opponents in like Songs of Conquest are pretty good at the game, and they're pretty really threatening, and a lot of that has to do with the fact that like systemically the game's just very simple.
Okay.
Is that funny?
Well, yeah, because you had me play that one.
Yeah.
And for me, that was too complicated.
Well,
So,
but you know,
for you, that's what is simple. So I'm trying to imagine what then is complicated. You know?
like you know what I mean, though. Simple.
I know.
In terms of like the number of systems that have to be considered and the number of approaches that have to be considered. Yeah, like Zuli mentions that the Endless Space 2 factions feel super different from each other, and I think that's truer in Endless Space 2 than in any other 4X type game I have ever played. Like, they are really, really, really different from one another. And that is definitely part of what gives the computer trouble, is like it just doesn't know how to deal with certain kinds of strategies, and
Yeah, that makes sense.
it's very difficult to come up with a systematic way to approach the problem of your opponent might do any one of these 600 things to you.
Yeah. Let's see how they fix that in fighting games is they just have it reach your inputs.
I don't know. I think if that was the thing that was going on in fighting games, I feel like the Eddie bot would not be doing so well.
I mean, I meant older fighting games.
Yeah.
Like, because I've been playing a lot of like the old like lower tier SNK stuff.
Mm-hmm.
For that thing I'm working on, and like, no, they're just legitimately just reading my inputs. It's really frustrating. Anyway, Pathfinder.
Yeah.
So Pathfinder.
So hold on. I am looking at chat. This is
Okay.
part of the problem. This is why I want there to be two people, one of whom is like paying attention to chat and one of whom is not, because if somebody's talking, like if somebody's suggesting stuff to me in chat, I just like zero in on that and stop hosting.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well,
Pathfinder. We're gonna talk a little bit about Pathfinder. We talked about Pathfinder a couple streams ago, but it was a very sort of unstructured ramble, which is the thing that I am great at, but is not a great thing to do, in my opinion. It's not really an awesome way to get concepts across. So I thought today what we would do is we just like have a couple of character concepts and just sort of like build them up mechanically in the space. And this would be a more structured way to approach what I think is cool about the system, how the system actually works. It might be more useful to somebody who is like actually like, hey, if I wanted to play this game, what would that look like? Or how would I approach it? Yay, Pathfinder. Yeah, the two, before we get into the Pathfinder too much though, to respond to this, Suzerain. Yeah, I've looked at Suzerain. I have almost started Suzerain on the channel a couple of times actually, but you know, just like things, everything comes out all at once for some reason. You get these like bursts of games. I have a backlog right now. We're running 5 series at a time, and I still have this like massive backlog of things. So Suzerain does look interesting. It is something that is on my list of stuff to get to eventually, because it does look like it would be an interesting fit for the channel. But I got to get there. And at this point, unfortunately, it's fallen into that hole where it's like, it's no longer new and it won't grab people's attention by being new, but it's also not old enough to be like, hey, here's this thing that you probably don't know about. It's in the dreaded middle ground of being like a year to 3 years old, which makes it it's a rough time to go back to as far as like viewer interest goes. Anyway, Pathfinder characters. Look at this. Here's an idea. What if we created a Pathfinder character so that we could talk about how Pathfinder characters work? Amabel, what do you think about that?
I think that's a good idea.
So this here is a path builder, pathbuilder2e.com, which is my preferred utility for this sort of thing. But honestly, you don't need a utility for this. It's not a complicated enough system to require something like this. The big place where something like this has value is that it makes it easy to keep track of the options, the number of different things you can be and do. So, Amabel, let me ask you a question, or we could turn it to chat.
Oh, audience participation. That sounds exciting. What is the question, though?
Do you have a character type or like an archetype or a character or something? An idea. Do you have the seed of an idea that we could build here?
I mean, I could. My fear is that my idea would be bad. Because my characters tend to be, what if I was a lady that hit people?
Sure.
Which is not necessarily as detailed or juicy a character.
All right, we're starting with what if I was a lady who hit people?
Okay.
Talk to me about hit people. What's hit people? What do you think? How hit people? Or why hit people?
Well, okay, so character who solution to a problem is punch it. Like that's like if there's a problem, you punch it. That's how you solve problems.
Okay, punching.
Yeah.
So let's talk about melee combat. Let's talk about unarmed combat in particular.
Okay.
I like an unarmed character an awful lot in tabletop RPGs. I rarely get the chance to play these games, and as such, rarely get the chance to play one. But it is definitely a thing that I am always on the lookout for when I'm looking at a new system. It's like how do you do like martial arts in this system? And so we do have the sort of like the classical monk, but Pathfinder offers actually kind of a lot of ways to do some interesting unarmed stuff. So the way that I usually like to build a character is I like to sort of zip together the mechanical bits and the non-mechanical bits in the sense that like you come up with one piece of one and then you come up with one piece of the other, and from there you start to like weave them together. I guess like dovetail them really. To help you come up with a concept for something that'll be interesting to play, both from a role play perspective and from a role play perspective. Right?
Good job.
You get it? Roll because
I did.
Because it's spelled differently, and that means the two things. Okay. Can I tell you what I like a lot in this system?
What's that?
A wrestler.
Okay.
So
okay, let's go.
We talked a little bit about this the archetype system, right? The idea of archetypes in the first stream, where there are these like pieces of a character, pieces of a class that you can bolt onto your main class. And the thing is, I find that actually it's very often the case that starting with an archetype, starting with like what is the extra piece, helps inform how you want to get there. So there's this wrestler dedication. It's going to require us to be trained in athletics and to be trained in unarmed attacks and unarmored defense. This is, I think, mostly future-proofing. As far as I'm aware, literally every character is trained in unarmored attacks and unarmored defense. I think this stuff is free. But we're going to want to be somebody who is trained in athletics, and we're gonna learn some sick wrestling moves.
Okay.
That's our character's plan.
Can it be a heal?
Can it be a heal? Absolutely, it can be a heal.
How would you represent being a heal mechanically? What would you lean into there?
Okay, so what you're talking about here, heal, you're either talking about an element of performance or you're talking about the character's actual personality.
Performance.
And I think that there's a couple of different answers here. If you're talking about it more as a performance, we're talking about somebody who, in a fight, is sort of putting on a show, is being big and dramatic. I think that the natural draw for that in this system is Swashbuckler.
Okay. I wouldn't have thought of that. That's an interesting.
Many warriors rely on brute force, weighty armor, or cumbersome weapons, but for you, battle is a dance. You move among foes with style and grace. So let me grab the book real quick that Swashbuckler appears in, which is just so that we can have a little bit of art, a little bit of inspiration, a little bit of flavor and vibe. Vibe is so important,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right, the advanced player's guide here. We can give this a little bit more real estate. Turns out that doesn't help. The pages are only as wide as they are. Yeah. Okay, swashbucklers are on page 82. So the swashbuckler, I think, is one of the cooler classes in Pathfinder. I don't know, as far as actual mechanical strength goes, I do think that they're a little less impressive than some of the other melee classes, but like, I so rarely build a thing for mechanical strength, So, at base, we are a dexterity class. Lots and lots of hit points. And our whole thing mechanically in combat is this idea of panache. When you do certain kinds of things in combat, you get this buff called panache. While you have panache, you deal bonus damage, and you can cash in your panache. You can spend it to perform extra powerful moves called finishers.
Okay, that's rad.
Right, panache. You care as much about the way you accomplish something as whether you actually accomplish it in the first place. When you perform an action with particular bravado, you can leverage this moment of verve to perform spectacular, deadly maneuvers. So let's hit the accept button here on Swashbuckler. Sure. Save to local folder. All right. With most classes in Pathfinder, you're going to make some kind of important decision right at the beginning. People who are used to like 5th edition D&D, this is going to be very familiar. Most classes there make some kind of important subclass decision. Usually, I think usually not at first level, but early on. That determines sort of like the type of your class that you are. So for swashbucklers, we have the 5 basic types of swashbuckler. The battle dancer, to whom a fight is a kind of performance art. You command your foe's attention with mesmerizing motions. This gets you trained in performance, which is usually the skill of like playing an instrument or, singing a song or whatever. You gain the fascinating performance skill feat, which allows you to draw people into your performances to the point where it sort of stupefies them, like they get really focused on you and they stop paying attention to things around them so much. You gain panache during an encounter when the result of your performance check exceeds the will DC of an observing foe. So each of these subclasses gets panache in their own special way. In addition to, as it notes here, all swashbucklers gain panache whenever they successfully execute a tumble through, which is a way that you can move through an opposing character's space without provoking an opportunity attack. That's acrobatics based, and obviously we're good at acrobatics. We have dexterity as our key stat. So Battle Dancer. Performance, this is kind of the vibe. It's not exactly a heal, right? I think if we're talking about a heal, we're better off in either Braggart or Whip, but we're going to look at all of them real quick. So the Braggart is all about boasting, taunting, psychologically needling your foes. You are trained in intimidation, and you use the Demoralize action, which is an intimidate-based check, to gain your panache. Demoralize also, it does something else. Pathfinder 2E Demoralize. I don't exactly remember. Okay, if you successfully demoralize the enemy, they become frightened. Frightened is actually a very powerful status penalty. You inflict like frightened 1 or frightened 2. You inflict frightened a number. And that number is the size of a penalty that the target takes to all of their checks and DCs. And to be clear, like armor class is a type of DC. Attacking people is a type of check. So it really it applies to everything.
Okay.
It's a big deal. Frightening people is very powerful, but because Demoralize has the emotion and fear and mental traits, there are a lot of kinds of things that an adventurer might deal with that can't be demoralized. You can't demoralize a slime. You can't demoralize mindless undead. So it's powerful when you're in the right place to use it. Right? There are fencers. Fencers are all about deception, feinting, and sort of like false strikes, opening your foe up through martial combat skill, basically.
Okay.
Not necessarily a terrible fit, and one benefit of this is that it's sort of broad. It's got a broader usefulness. The gymnast is automatically trained in athletics. Reposition, maneuver, and bewilder your foes with daring feats of physical prowess. So this is more of a strength focused swashbuckler. Athletics is a strength skill, and you gain panache whenever you grapple, shove, or trip, all of which are different kinds of athletics-based checks.
And are you just so if someone was to be like a gymnast, would they then gain access to those checks? Like can any character grapple, trip,
Yeah,
or shove? Okay.
Yeah.
It's
Let's
like an action.
here. Let's talk about that concept real quick here for a second. So there's a lot of skill-based actions that you can take in combat. Anything that's got a sort of a one of these little diamonds next to it is a skill. Let's just drop down here to trip, just so you can see what I'm talking about. So many types of checks are, actually this will be the best way to look at this. Skills have various actions associated with them. Most kinds of actions that are associated with skills can be performed by anybody, regardless of their level of the skill. It's only relatively specific things that require you to be trained in the skill to be able to do them. Like disarming someone in combat is a thing that you can only do if you're trained, at least in athletics. There are several sort of advanced thievery. Like picking locks and disabling devices safely is something that requires training in thievery. But anybody can try to just snatch something out of somebody's pocket or whatever. So yeah, all of the basic athletics things are things that you can do whether or not you are trained. The final type of swashbuckler is the wit. You're friendly, clever, and full of humor. It says you're friendly, clever. You're friendly. Let's not. I think you could play this as a heal, probably. Your witticisms leave foes unprepared for the skill and speed of your attacks. You're trained in diplomacy rather than intimidation, and you gain the bon mot skill feat, which, if we want to jump over here, this allows you to make a diplomacy check against a person's will DC, and if you pass them, you have enraged or distracted them to the point where they are taking a penalty to their perception and their will saves. Their mind is on the thing you said, not on the thing that's happening to them. And it's sort of an interesting one because the swashbuckler themselves, the swashbuckler is unlikely to be able to take much advantage of that. Lowering somebody's, beating up somebody's will saves, making their will saves weaker, does make it easier to like intimidate them and stuff afterward. But in combat, a lot of what you're doing is stabbing people. And this one doesn't really help you stab people. This definitely feels more like, lowering somebody's perception helps the sneaky members of the party, take up better positions in combat. Lowering somebody's will is more likely to help the party's magic users than it is to help you. So this is an interesting approach to that. And I do think you could play a wit as a heal. I think like braggart and wit are the two that are the closest to getting us to that place.
Yeah, I figured either from what you described, either the braggart or even the gymnast to a degree, if it's kind of like a big...
Yeah, you can do sort of a bully thing here.
Yeah, but the braggart kind of gets the energy of,
Yeah, I think I agree. I like
trash
that.
talk and
I like that, and I like for playing a heal type character. I think you're gonna want quite a bit of charisma.
Yeah.
So I like that this leans into that. This encourages you to have a bunch of charisma. Okay, so we've got a very basic sort of skeleton for our character here. And this is the way I like to do it. Like you get a piece of mechanics that leads you to a piece of flavor, that leads you to a piece of mechanics, that leads you to a piece of flavor, and you zip them together like that. Or, you start on the other side. But yeah, this is a strong approach, I think. So we've got a character who wants to be dexterous and charismatic to play into the sort of like the base things of the class. But we're also going to be involved in melee combat, right?
Yeah.
This is a thing of the swashbuckler. You show up with a sword, possibly a buckler or something, probably a sword in an open hand though. And our character is certainly going to be sword and open hand for reasons we'll talk about. But we're still going to want to be physically strong because, first of all, your strength aids your melee damage. And secondly, we're going to be using strength for the athletics checks necessary to do wrestler stuff. Right? So what we have here is a character who wants strength and dex and charisma. So from there, we got to start thinking about ancestries. They talk about this box up here as the ABCs of building your character. Like this will get you to the start of something. Ancestry and background and class. And that's a couple of pretty significant pieces of mechanics and a pretty significant piece of flavor, right?
Okay.
I usually don't find that it's all that helpful to start with the A. Usually, I think class is the thing that you want to nail down first. Class is where a lot of the juice comes from. So at this point, though, we know what stats we want. Let's talk about ancestry. Let's talk about what kind of critter is this. Now, this is the place where I think Path Builder falls down the most, and I understand why it needs to be this way, because technically, only the rules are free. A lot of the flavor stuff is technically, the intellectual property of Paizo and whatnot. But I really wish that they could include a picture, just like a couple of pictures with each of these. This is part of the reason that I go to the books a lot when I'm doing character building stuff, is for the vibes, is for the visual inspiration. So ancestries will have either 2 stat boosts and a stat flaw, a reduction to your bonus of a stat, or just 2 boosts, 3 boosts and a flaw, or 2 boosts. And even if an ancestry has 3 boosts and a flaw, you're allowed to just play them as any 2 boosts. That is an option that is available to you, and I believe it is laid out in the character thing. It's in the character creation flowchart somewhere. But yeah, this is a place where I usually like to, unless I have a very specific concept in mind already, I like to let the mechanics be a little bit of a guide.
Yeah.
And so I look for what's an ancestry that has some. Yeah, here we go. You always have the option to replace your ancestry's listed attribute boosts and flaws with 2 free attribute boosts of your choice. So yeah, I usually like to say, like, where's a stat spread that helps us out here, and more than anything, we're looking for just something that doesn't have a flaw on strength or dexterity or charisma. I don't.
Yeah.
But, obviously it would be cool to find something that fits really closely. So, like, Awakened Animals, which I don't know a lot about. This is a thing that's in a very recently printed book. Have a boost of dexterity and charisma, and you choose, with a flaw of constitution. That's an interesting one, because we could do strength and dex and charisma here, right? A constitution flaw is a little scary because a reduction in your constitution modifier is going to reduce your hit points, your max hit points. And for a character who intends to be not just in melee combat, but in particular, like, sticking enemies to your side, like, pulling people into headlocks and stuff, you're probably going to be taking some shots. The enemies are going to be swinging weapons at you sometimes. So I'm a little leery of a constitution flaw. That said, an awakened animal, which is essentially like an anthropomorphized animal character, there are some real fun ideas there for a wrestler. Amabel,
Yeah.
come along with me on this. Follow me, if you will, into this wild fantasy where, like, what if you were a wrestler, a big, strong, buff wrestler that had, like, a jaguar's head?
Oh no.
Sort of like a jaguar vibe.
Okay.
Very strong, extremely charismatic. Anger of beast, So this
But
awakened animal,
one that's weak to ogres.
but one that's weak to ogres. Well, I mean, listen, nobody's not weak to ogres. What else do we have here? Constitution, charisma, free with a flaw to wisdom.
How many people in your audience do you think will get that joke? If you're in chat and you got that reference, you got that joke, let us know.
Catfolk is interesting. Catfolk is we're almost in Jaguar Town here, and we could do strength, dexterity, charisma with a flaw to wisdom. I think that's interesting, and it maybe speaks well to the fantasy of playing a wrestling heel, right? The way that heels usually lose in wrestling is either the face sort of overcomes them through purity. Right, there's just got too much heart to defeat, or they're very stupid and vain, and they get tricked in some way. The sort of like the classic narcissist heel, and I think the wisdom flaw represents that really well.
Yeah, why don't we go with catfolk?
You want to go catfolk? You don't even want to. We're at C. Okay, we'll go catfolk.
Okay, who do I usually pick? I usually
human.
pick human.
You always pick human.
Not always. Excuse me. I'm playing a rat folk person.
That's true. You
Presently.
are playing a rat folk in our current.
And I was playing a skeleton, a human skeleton, but a skeleton.
Skeleton nonetheless.
Okay, so people in chat, we were specifically talking about King, not about Armor King. So King, the first King, was killed by.
Excuse me, I was talking about Armor King.
What?
Heel.
Oh right, yeah.
King's a face. Come on now.
King is a face. I'm sorry. All right, yeah. Well, then he's not weak to ogres then. He's
Everybody,
weak to
everybody's weak to ogres. Come on now. Everybody's weak to Marduk's too, and a Marduk and an ogre aren't that different. Is the thing. The biggest difference is that Marduk he can't breathe fire from any of his limbs, which is unfortunate. So a catfolk in case you were wondering, the cat folk, you know,
Yeah.
they look like cat folk. That's their deal. So cat folk call themselves Amurans, which is a very cat noise kind of thing.
Oh yeah.
So we have the base size of medium. We're not going to be like hugely physically impressive, but most characters are medium. We can live with medium. So this would be a good time to start talking about how a character's stats are actually built out here. Everybody starts with base +0 in every attribute, in all 6 of the attributes. Over the course of this character building process, we're going to acquire modifiers to our attributes from a variety of different steps. Being a catfolk has given us, of course, dexterity, charisma, and we're going to make this strength. We've lost some wisdom. We're going to pick a background in a second here. And when we pick a background, it's going to give us a boost to 2 more of our stats. Our class gives us a boost to whatever is listed here in key ability. And then, after all that, we also get to pick 4 stats to receive 1 boost each. That means that if you give something a boost in all 4 steps, one of your skills might get as high as a +4 modifier. Generally speaking, it's wise to have the stat that you're going to be attacking people with in combat be at a +4. This is a very common D20 style of combat conflict resolution. So when you're attacking somebody, you're rolling a D20, you're adding your modifiers and stuff. Essentially, because we're using 20-sided dice, each point of bonus equates to roughly like a 5% change in your chance to hit or crit or critically fail or whatever, because again, remember the 4 degrees of success system here. So being at only +3 instead of +4 is only a 5% difference in terms of your hit chance and fail chance, and it's not that big of a deal. But if there was a thing in a game, if there's a skill or an option or whatever, a perk in a game that gives you 5% hit chance, you always take it over everything, right?
I probably should be doing that.
Probably, okay. Mathematically, it is correct. You know what I'm saying. So, I'm not saying you always have to end up on +4. I'm saying I'm gonna probably always end up on +4. That's not true though. There are some builds where you can't. Some classes where their stat build is intentionally laid out such that you can't. Like for example, the Thaumaturge, which is very likely to be a sort of like heavy melee type character, receives its class boost to charisma, and as such cannot get +4 to its strength modifier. So there are exceptions. But my point is, we're going to want to look for... My point is, when I'm looking through backgrounds, I'm using that same sort of like... The original guiding light is, what stats does this give? And then once we find, a handful of things that give appropriate stats, we think about, well, how do these fit to the character? What do these tell us about the character? How do these give us room to expand this concept in an interesting way? So, generally speaking, the format of these is going to be... one of your boosts is going to be constrained to like 1 or 2 stats. The other one is going to be your choice. And then they're also going to train you in a skill and give you a feat associated with that skill in some way. But we can also start limiting this just by like what makes sense for a character who became an adventurer who's all about like physically and charismatically dominating opponents. There's a lot of dominance to this character, right?
Yeah.
So what do you think? What feels like a vibe here? Are we a bandit? I think that feels like it's kind of in the space. Part of what I like about looking for things that make sense stat-wise rather than just conceptually is that they can lead you to some unusual combinations. You know, like I wouldn't necessarily think about like, hey, what if this character was a big scary pirate? But the math fits. And then it's like, okay, so what if? What if we worked on a pirate ship or a military vessel of some kind, and we were using that impressive physicality to wrangle and load and maintain the ship's cannons in combat. You can imagine a character like that being pretty useful on a vessel. Is this our thing where we cannoneer?
Why don't we go?
You want to go cannoneer?
Nothing else is jumping out at me right away.
And one thing I like about this is, see, it starts to sketch out character immediately, right? We're trained in the athletic skill, which we want to be for the wrestler thing anyway. This dovetails very nicely with wrestler, and it gives us warfare lore. So that's like study of combat, right? That's not just I've been in some fights. That's like I know some things in a formal sense about the business of warfare. And this starts to fill in like who this character is. How much of the heal stuff is an act calculated to provide advantage, right? Because this is a character who does think about things in that way. I like the sort of intellectualism that this suggests. Okay, so we got a sort of an ABC quickly assembled here. So we are given either strength or dexterity from our background, and then one thing of our choice. We can take strength and dex here. Take strength as our free boost from our ancestry, plus the strength and charisma. We get a class boost to dexterity. We take some more dexterity. We take some more strength. We take some more charisma. And then we have one more free boost here that we can apply. So a little bit of physical toughness if we apply it to constitution. A little bit of like studiousness, a little bit of formalized knowledge, perhaps, if we go intelligence. Or we could essentially just like buy off the wisdom penalty. What do you think? What feels right? I think there's a lot of value to. I feel like the wisdom thing is maybe just wanting to buy off the penalty, where the constitution and intelligence, these have roots in the idea of who the character is, right?
I would definitely leave the wisdom alone into one of.
Yeah, me too. I generally like to have a character. This is another smallish complaint, very small complaint I have about this system, is I like to play a character generally who has like pretty extreme positives and negatives. I like to be bad at things. One of the first things I often consider with a character is like, what is this character not good at? Because the things that you're not good at, I think, are formative to your personality and tastes even more strongly than the things that you are good at. Generally.
Yeah, I think I like int for that boost because the degree to which the braggart is kind of a constructed performance, and that requires, I think, a bit of intelligence, is leaning into the formal study of warfare kind of thing.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I like +1 int as an expression of the cunning. Yeah.
In the chat, we have someone, Precipitous Nix, suggesting that if we're aiming for braggart, it might be better to prioritize +3 charisma over +3 strength.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. Here's the thing about braggart that always has me a little like, first of all, this character is a wrestler first and a swashbuckler second in my mind.
Yeah.
So I am thinking about that. And I know that it's a little weird to pick a dex class for that. Like, we're not doing this in the most like maximize your mechanical strength kind of way. If we were, we definitely would have taken the +1 con over the +1 int. But like as an expression of as an expression of the character, this is what
Yeah.
feels right to me, and I really want to lean into this heel wrestler thing, and I really like the idea of like the braggart stuff not always working. The other thing mechanically, like in terms of mechanical strength, is just like there are so many foes that you can't demoralize.
Yeah.
You're gonna run into that, especially like in low levels. You're gonna run into so much stuff where demoralize just isn't an option because the thing you're fighting doesn't have a brain. And obviously
Actually,
that has a lot to do with like what's your DM's style for building out encounters? How much do they try to cater to your strengths? When I'm running a game, I like to try to specifically do both. Like try to build some encounters that play on the character's weakness and build some encounters that play on their strengths so that they can feel both of those extremes more fully. It helps them be aware of what they're good at and what they're not, and really want to seize on those moments where it's like, aha, I can do all of my stuff here. This is going to be my combat. I think it helps people feel really special in those moments. And it's nice to be able to rescue somebody from an encounter where like their thing is not available to them all the way.
yeah. So two things that brings up. One, I just wanted to say, like, your encounters that I've encountered are built really well.
Thank you.
Are like the best I've seen in the few different TTRPGs that I've been in. And I used to run D&D 4E, and I did some okay encounters, but yours are like at another level. There's always the spice to it, and I certainly would be interested at some point, for a future stream perhaps, if you wanted to like take us through how you build an encounter.
Okay, that's interesting. I appreciate what you're saying. You're very sweet, and I really do appreciate compliments about my GMing. But like part of the reason I really appreciate compliments about my GMing is the fact that despite the fact that I've been doing it for like 30 years, I'm like quite insecure about it.
Okay.
I think it's a very difficult thing, and I always feel like I'm not doing well enough. And after any session, I experience, even if the players walk away from the session being like, "Oh, that was awesome," like that's a great feeling. But I will always partially be like, "Oh no, okay, I see all these places where I fucked up. I see all these places where I could have done a better thing." And I get a little bit of this is maybe a weird way to put it, but it is the thing that like to me feels a little bit like it makes the most sense as a metaphor. I get kind of like a top drop.
No, I get it.
Right, like you're extending yourself so much. I don't know. We don't need to talk about top drop in detail or anything, but it's just like that's what it feels like to me. And so I would be very nervous to be giving anybody advice given that.
Okay. That makes perfect sense, sweetheart. The second thing I was going to ask you though. So are we building this character as a level 1 character? Or what?
I don't generally build characters as a level. So like it is important to figure out like to know what level you're kind of building for, but I generally build character for like a sort of I build to a sort of like a broad range of levels. Like this is a character build that I think will be interesting at low levels, and I have no idea what you will do with it beyond that. This is not a character who has a plan to level 9. This is a character who like I know what you're going to be doing for like the first 4 levels ish. But whenever I'm building a character, like I try not to come at it with that level of precision, because I want there to be a lot of room to grow in session.
Sure. But like,
So I try to, and, you know, if you're making, even if you are making a thing because you're like you're sitting down at the table and you're going to be level 1, I think you got to be thinking about that character as like a level 3 or 4 character at that point, even, right? Because the changes you're going to make as you level up, they need some kind of grounding. But at the same time, you don't want to lock things in too much because, like I say, like as you're playing, you may find that the character evolves away from your expectations in certain ways. So I try to like target sort of a cloud of levels around where the game is going to be. It's like, who is this character at level 3? Who is this character at level 6? Who is this character? You know.
that makes perfect sense to me. And then, like, and in my experience, when I played, a character, like, I don't tend to sketch out the character too much beyond like a broad, even just like a broad concept. I'm not as when I build a character, and I'm sure this is something that might be a little frustrating for you sometimes. I don't necessarily enmesh the mechanics with the concept as much because the concept really evolves more in play for me. So like I sometimes make suboptimal
Why would that be
mechanical
frustrating
choices.
for me?
Because you're the one that has to take me through how to make a character. Every time.
Anyway, so we're now making this. We have some sort of like secondary level choices to make here. We made one of the important ones, which is we picked our style, picked our sort of subclass thing. Your ancestry will come along with a heritage. So you'll pick some kind of like, not all elves are the same, not all catfolk are the same. And there's sort of like the set of common heritages available to your ancestry, which every ancestry has. There'll be like 5 or 6 or whatever of them, and they'll give you various bonuses. The catfolk have here like a nice sort of smattering. Like there's one that gives cold resistance, and you treat environmental cold effects as if they were less extreme because thick coat of fur. There's one that focuses on, you have some very impressive claws. You have a claw unarmed attack that deals this kind of damage and is in this weapon group and has these traits. Bonuses to particular senses, things like that. But also, there is this idea of versatile heritages, which is like, for example, anybody might be the scion of a vampire. Listen, you can have a blade of any ancestry, right? Perhaps your mother was a hag. Perhaps there's some kind of outsider blood, or maybe elemental blood in your bloodline. So this is like, you can use the heritage basically as a way of, clumsily you might think of it as a way of like multi-classing your ancestry. Or expressing a more complicated thing here. But what do you think? Do you like any of these catfolk heritages for what we're doing? Like, I'll tell you, we're gonna want to have a one hand free, because grabbing people with athletics requires a free hand, and most of our wrestler stuff is going to be reliant on that.
Okay.
So that being the case, clawed catfolk certainly has some utility, increasing the value of our like basic unarmed attack. The closed fist punch, just like the most basic unarmed attack, is 1d4, and it deals non-lethal damage by default. It has the non-lethal tag. So you can use it to deal real, like, normal hit point damage, but you do so at a penalty. I think the rules of the non-lethal tag. You can use a non-lethal weapon to make a lethal attack with a -2 circumstance penalty to the attack roll. So, going for built-in real unarmed weapon, I think is potentially pretty strong.
Okay. Yeah. What is? I'm you looking at the screen and looking at the What is liminal catfolk?
Let's see here. Liminal catfolk comes from Lost Omens Ancestry Guide, which it turns out I do have open for some reason.
Yeah, no, that doesn't seem like it really relates.
Well, you don't know what it is yet.
Well,
How are you going to be like, what is this? Never mind. Okay,
I
catfolk.
haven't read.
So there was a book that expands on many of the ancestries here. Let's have a look at this. You've inherited a closeness to the far corners of the world where the boundaries between dimensions grow thin. So, this doesn't tie to anything we're doing now. The question is this like another dimension of the character that we want to open up? It is enough to think an idea is cool. You know?
Yeah.
So what this gives you: detect magic as an innate occult cantrip. You gain a +1 circumstance bonus to occultism checks to recall knowledge about creatures that originated outside of the material plane. So a liminal catfolk is somebody with extraplanar knowledge. Is that something that is up with our character? There's a definite like hole in the story of our character between I was a cannoneer on a ship and now I wrestle monsters for a living.
Yeah. Maybe.
Do you
Maybe
think this is the kind of thing that fills that hole? Does that? I mean,
see,
what?
it might be that. There's also here's the other thing that's calling. Sharp-eared catfolk.
Okay.
You have big expressive ears.
Perk up an unexpected sound.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the thing when I think of a heel, I think of a heel like yelling at the audience about how like getting that cheap heat and then like holding up their hand to their ear.
Yeah.
So
All right.
the big moving ears would be like that doesn't really fix the hole. It does make it very funny.
Funny is also good enough, by the way.
Yeah. I don't know which one are you feeling more strongly, sweethearts. I don't have a.
I do think like mechanically, there's a lot to recommend having the claws, having a built-in knife.
Okay.
But I do think taking sharp-eared catfolk specifically so that we can hear the boos of the crowd more effectively is very fun. Do you want to go sharp-eared catfolk?
All right, let's do it. Let's
okay,
do it.
I think that's a fun character note, and I think it's fine to spend actual mechanical resources on fun character notes. In fact, it's better than fine. All right, so characters acquire feats at various levels. If you look at your class description here, the Advanced Characters Guide, we're not looking at the right page. What page are the... Let me zoom back out here for a second. Page of Swashbuckler was 82. So your class description contains this handy-dandy table of the stuff you get. So you can see here at level 1, we're getting Ancestry and Background, which includes... the Ancestry includes an Ancestry feat. So, these are... There are sort of 3 different classes of feats. There's Ancestry feats, and Skill feats, and Class feats. You'll get an Ancestry feat every 4 levels or so. And these are things that are specifically related to your background, often related to your physical background, often related to the physicality of your ancestry or whatever. So you get things like the ability to take a cat nap, or culturally, like the kinds of weapons that catfolk often use, the things that like are the weapons of their community and culture. Saber teeth. You get a Jaws unarmed attack that deals 1d6 piercing damage.
That's pretty good, and that's a pretty gnarly heal kind of thing to do.
Yeah, just biting people.
What is the reincarnation feat?
Reincarnation feats are rare ancestry feats available to any character who has reincarnated at least once. This is
Okay.
who knows what the deal is with this. So let's talk about rarity real quickly here. This is one of the things I really like about this system. Character options are fitted with a rarity, common, uncommon, or rare. And you can see the background color of the box here indicating rarity.
Mm-hmm.
Where this is this sort of like light blue is common, this dark blue is rare, and then there is an orange that is used for uncommon, I believe. And rare and uncommon options in terms of character options are not. They're not like power level indicators. They are like indicators of narrative weight. A rare character option is the kind of thing that's going to exert a pull on the story of your campaign, on the story of your characters, on the story of your party. Somebody having died and been reincarnated is something that's probably going to come up. It's something that's going to be difficult to resist the sort of like story draw of. So generally speaking, I try not to build characters with a lot of rare options. You know, definitely they're definitely to ask your GM kind of thing. I don't feel like this character was reincarnated. I don't like to start with that much sort of protagonist energy. It's a party game, right? You're doing things as a group here.
Yeah,
Try not to
likewise,
show up prepared to be the protagonist.
No, in fact, when I play, I specifically try not to do that and to be like, I just want to be like the supporting cast, you know. And yeah, I just was curious. So just like, oh, what is that? And now I know.
You've seen so many people from so many walks of life in your travels that you naturally adopt a pleasant and affable demeanor when meeting others. Like, here's a question: to what extent is the heal thing? Like, is it something that's just true during a fight? Is the character like a friendly, pleasant person the rest of the time?
I think so. I like it being a thing that is a performance and is because there's an old canard about character actors, people who played a lot of villainous characters in movies, often being like real sweethearts.
Okay,
Like
yeah.
Vincent Price is a good example of that, and I like that energy of someone who is is actually like really friendly and sweet. But when it's showtime, even if it's a battle to the death, it's still showtime.
Yeah.
Well then, the heal stuff comes out and
Okay, I
yeah.
think that like this is a cool mechanical expression of that then.
Yeah.
So we gain training in diplomacy. If you're already trained in diplomacy, you instead get a different skill training of your choice, and the hobnobber skill feat, which allows us to learn information through conversation. Gathering information like from people in a city or whatever takes less time. I like that a lot as a sort of an expression of the character's intelligence. Like diplomacy is a charisma based skill, but this feels like an intelligence focused way of using it.
Yeah.
So again, I think that plays into some of the ideas we have about this character. And then finally, we have everybody gets a class feat at first level. This is something that is relevant to your class's sort of basic functionality, and you can see you get a ton of these. You get class feats every even numbered level, and right, that's where it says that somewhere. Yeah, first level in every even numbered level, you'll gain a swashbuckler class feat. So this is where you get sort of like a lot of the mechanical meat of your class as you level up. So like, for example, here's the base set of first level feats just from the original swashbuckler class description. And you can see there's stuff in here that sort of helps direct you into various fighting styles. Maybe you're sort of like a shield and sword fighter. When you use raised shield to gain an AC bonus from a buckler, you get a full shield bonus instead of the buckler bonus, which is cool. Not relevant to our character, obviously. We're going to have an open hand. Dueling parry, when you are wielding only a single one-handed melee weapon and have your other hand or hands free, you can spend one action to put yourself into sort of a parrying stance. You get a +2 circumstance bonus to AC until the start of your next turn. This is the same thing that raising a shield does. So this gives us the ability to defend ourselves with our open hand and our knowledge of, you know, weapon fighting. We haven't really decided what kind of weapon our weapon fighting is about, but we'll get there.
A one-handed folding chair.
That's a club of some kind, right? I would call it a club. It's not a hammer. Let's see here. Flying blade. You've learned to apply your flashy techniques to thrown weapons. That really doesn't sound like our deal. No. So focused fascination requires the fascinating performance feat, which obviously you have if you picked that one kind of swashbuckler. But you might have acquired it from somewhere else, like your background potentially. Goading feint. This requires training and deception. So you'll notice it's not on the list of things in Path Builder because Path Builder is quote unquote smart, and it doesn't show you things you're not qualified for. But at the same time, like, I find that's a little frustrating because, like, reading something like Goading Feint, if it turns out to be cool, this is how I would decide to take deception in the first place. So yeah. I really do. I like, even though this utility is great, I spend a lot of time looking at the books when I'm building things. So yeah, when you trick a foe, you can goad them into overextending on their next attack. On a feint, you can use the following success and critical success effects instead of other effects that you would gain. So on a success, the target takes -2 penalty to their next attack roll against you. I mean, that's interesting.
Yeah.
We haven't talked about feinting. The thing about feinting here, so this is a use of the deception skill. With a misleading flourish, you can attempt to leave an opponent unprepared for your real attack. You attempt a deception check against their perception DC. And basically, like, the default function of feint is it allows you to throw your opponent's focus off so that you get to attack them with the off guard penalty on your next attack. It can be awfully useful, but the downside is I think we're going to be pretty action starved as it is.
Yeah.
I think we don't probably have a lot of time for feinting, and we certainly don't have a lot of time for extra goading feinting that doesn't even apply the off guard penalty to our opponents. It's like, it's too much to do. We're already very busy. Nimble dodge. Nimble dodge here is a reaction. That's what this symbol means. When a creature targets you with an attack, as long as you aren't encumbered, you can deftly dodge out of the way, gaining a bonus to AC against the triggering attack. It's the same kind of defense bonus as raising a shield or a dueling parry, but it only applies against one attack, with the trade-off being that you spent your reaction instead of an action on your turn. Actions on your turn, obviously, like I was saying, there's a lot of competition. There's a lot of things we want to be doing with our actions. We currently don't have any way to spend our reaction at all.
Okay.
So I don't hate nimble dodge just as a way to sort of give us a little bit of extra toughness, especially since we're going to be in melee combat with people a lot.
Yeah, let's go with that.
The other one that I think is worth looking at for us is Your Next, because we are trained in intimidation, because intimidation is kind of a thing for us, being a braggart. When you reduce an enemy to 0 hit points, you can spend your reaction to immediately intimidate a different foe with a circumstance bonus. You kill somebody, you just look over at his dearest compatriot, and you're like, your turn.
Yeah,
That's pretty fun and compelling, but I do think Nimble Dodge is better and smarter, and like critically smarter.
okay. Let's go with that. And in the chat, Precipitous Nick says there is a special reaction as a swashbuckler. It's your fancy riposte
That's
when someone
true.
critically fails at attacking you.
That's
It's
true.
not come up super often though.
Yeah, the fancy riposte. I did forget about that. Opportune riposte here, which is
okay.
a thing. Do you have opportune riposte at level? You pick that up at level 3. Okay. But yeah, it is. Somebody critically fails a strike against you, you can spend your reaction to just immediately hit them or attempt to disarm them. Disarm was not great in the base version of the game. When they released the remaster, I believe they made it a little bit more compelling.
Okay.
If you attempt to disarm somebody, you make an athletics check against their reflex DC. If you just succeed normally, the target takes a -2 circumstance penalty to attacks with the item or other checks, and they have to spend an action to get their grip back, basically, to end the penalty. That's interesting. It's more compelling than it used to be. Usually, though, you'll use this to strike because like hitting people is good. The best defense, it turns out, is murdering the opponent. There's very few enemies deal much damage when they're dead.
That's good advice. That's good advice.
Just kind of generally, right?
This is my problem. This is why my skeleton died, because I didn't sufficiently murder the dog.
Okay, the massive magical winter wolf, 10-foot tall wolf that you antagonized intentionally, but critically did not kill. Did in fact kill you because it was alive to do so. So we've talked a little bit about panache. We have this sort of like default finisher that all swashbucklers have, but as we level up through class feats and stuff, we will potentially pick up more finishers, different things to do. But as it is right now, we can make a strike with a weapon or an armed attack that would apply the precise strike damage. Yes, this is like the basic finisher. I forgot, when you have panache, you have a bonus to your speed and a +1 circumstance bonus to checks to tumble through your opponents. There are some places where I think this class is like the design of this class is a little strange. Tumbling through people is good. Generally speaking, it's nice to have the ability to move freely around the battlefield, to flank people, to acquire combat bonuses, or just make their life difficult, to be able to tumble through the tough guy who's trying to keep you from the ranged attackers or the enemy wizard or whatever. But like most of the time, you're doing a tumble through because it gets you panache, I feel like. And that certainly was the thing that we saw in the game where we had a swashbuckler in our party, right?
Yeah.
Opportunity attacks are much rarer in Pathfinder. Not like only something like 15% of monsters have the opportunity attack ability or anything similar. So it's a lot easier to just walk around someone if you want to flank.
Yeah.
So I don't know, like the bonus to tumble through, it just seems strange here because you're going to tumble through to get your panache, and then you're probably going to spend your panache on a finisher pretty quickly. And the next time you tumble through, you won't have panache anymore, and you'll be doing it to gain panache. So I don't really... There are elements of the design of this class that don't, I think, entirely click, but it's still a really cool fantasy. Because we are a cat, half damage on falling,
Okay.
Precise strike, this is, when you attack while you have panache, you deal bonus precision damage. If the strike is part of a finisher, the additional damage is increased to 2d6. You spend your panache when doing that. So at level 2, we would take our wrestler dedication, and let's just talk really quickly about that. And I think like this is enough of a skeleton of a character for this to be playable, I think, or you would fill in the details at low level, but this is the seed of a character. So, the wrestler archetype. What does it mean to be a wrestler? Why was I excited about this? So, you take the wrestler archetype feat. We've formed the foundation for this now. Your training in the wrestling arts has made you particularly adept at moving, striking, and grappling. You become an expert in athletics immediately at level 2. That's pretty cool. That's going to give you another +2 on your proficiency. You can see here if we bump this character up to level 2. There are 4 different levels of being trained in something, basically, in Pathfinder. And each level gives you a higher bonus than the previous one. So being able to move up to expert proficiency at such a low level is going to put you ahead of the sort of evolving defense curve for a while. The game is not expecting you to be expert at stuff at level 2. So that's neat. It'll make you a little bit better at grabbing people, tripping people, etc. You gain the Titan Wrestler skill feat, which lets you use the athletics actions on things up to 2 sizes larger than you, or up to 3 sizes larger if you're legendary at athletics.
Wow.
In addition, you gain a +2 circumstance bonus to your fortitude DC when resisting attempts to grapple you or swallow you whole. Wrestlers particularly good at not getting swallowed whole. And then that unlocks access to all of these other feats. These are things that you get the ability to take in your class feat slots because one of your classes is wrestler, effectively. And this is the cool shit. Things like crushing grab, where whenever you grapple a creature, you immediately deal some damage to it with your incredible strength. Or elbow breaker, or suplex. As this character levels up, you're going to take a lot of fun wrestling throws, basically. Flexing your entire body, you heave your opponent over your head and slam them into the ground. Use this on a creature that you already have grabbed or restrained. You prone them. You deal some extra damage. Clinch strikes, running tackles, submission holds. Wrestler shit.
I have a very important question.
Yeah.
If there was like a sentient or ghost train, what size creature would it be?
A phantom train, so to speak.
Yeah.
Would probably be I don't know, you're talking about huge there at the very least. I think you would definitely need to be legendary at athletics
To suplex.
if you wanted to suplex some kind of ghostly train. And I think that fits the source material.
Yeah.
I think it is inarguable that Sabin is legendary at athletics. Possibly more than that. Whirling throw is fun. You get to hurl a creature into stuff or other creatures or off a cliff or whatever. Do a 6 spinning pile driver Zangief style. The spine breaker. This is a fun one. Form lock. Your ability to manipulate your enemy's body is potent enough that you can tear and break apart alternate forms. You can grapple people so good that they can't shapeshift or polymorph. And you can even wrestle them back into their original form if they're already polymorphed.
That's nuts.
The inescapable grasp. Your grasp has a supernatural quality that prevents creatures from being able to teleport out of it sometimes. This is another thing I really like about Pathfinder. It's like, if you're gonna do something, you should stretch it to 110% at least, right?
Oh yeah, Pathfinder makes sense for a game that you like. because it just goes so hard and goes 200%.
Yeah, you should be able to just stretch everything to its a little bit past its sort of like sensibility point. And I love that. I'm wrestling you too hard for you to teleport. My muscles are a wall of iron. They're impenetrable. So the downside of that is like you're gonna spend a lot of your class feats on sick wrestling maneuvers because they're so much fun. And that's going to make it hard to take swashbuckler stuff. And that's part of the reason that I was like, this character's more of a wrestler than a swashbuckler. Because, throughout your early levels, at level 6, swashbucklers can pick up attack of opportunity. I think that's tough to pass up. And you might notice the wrestler has like a ton of feats available at level 4. And then a ton of feats available at level 8. And you don't really need to, like, the only thing you get at level 6 is a thing that's kind of an opportunity attack, because they know at level 6 you're probably taking opportunity attack. Anyway, so yeah, I think that's like an interesting idea for like a cat heal wrestler. It's not Armor King.
No.
But it's in the domain of Armor King. It's an Armor King-like character.
Yeah, this was fun.
So yeah, you would throw a weapon on there. You would have some kind of weapon for hitting people with when you're not wrestling them, or sometimes when you still are wrestling them, and you'd want a one-handed weapon for that purpose. Maybe it's maybe it's a battle axe. Here's the thing. We have +3 strength, +4 dex. So what we really want is a finesse weapon.
Ooh. Like a whip or something? Is that a finesse weapon?
That's a little strong. Finesse weapons allow you to use your dexterity modifier instead of your strength modifier on attack rolls. Pardon me. The good news is, like, the trade-off here is generally finesse weapons are a little bit less at just dealing bulk damage. You're going to have a hard time hitting an enemy as hard with a finesse weapon as you can with, say, a maul, If you want to really chunk somebody, you are using a strength-based weapon. But because we're only holding our weapon in one hand anyway, many of the stronger one-handed weapons have a finesse, at least have like a finesse version available. There is the rapier here, which is sort of a classic of one hand weapon, one hand free combat, right?
Yeah.
It's your D6 piercing damage. Piercing, not necessarily the best damage type. There are a lot of creatures where you're going to be sad if piercing damage is all you can do because, skeletons or whatever. Good luck stabbing an ooze to death, a gelatinous cube or other shape. But some of that stuff you can engage wrestling with. The thing about a skeleton is that they're very easy to grapple. They have a lot of handholds.
Yeah.
And then this weapon has the finesse trait, so you get to wield it with your dex. You still do damage with your strength modifier, but we have a good strength modifier. We're fine. And then this weapon has the deadly trait, where on a critical hit it adds an extra higher value die. So you do really mean damage on a crit with these extra precise weapons. And if you want to get fancy, what about a rapier that has a gun in it? You could do that. I don't know. I'd probably use the normal one. Here's the thing about a melee weapon. It feels to me like it's dangerous to have it filled with black powder. If you're going to be hitting people with a thing, right?
Yeah, it'd be like those flying meteors from that movie we saw with it was like a club, but like exploding.
Was it even okay? We watched this horrible. We watched a pretty good portion of this horrible martial arts movie the other day. That was called. It was called Killer Meteors.
Killer Meteors. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a Jackie Chan movie. It's a movie in which Jackie Chan appears briefly as one of the antagonists. I think by the end of the film, the protagonist has killed every person he's met throughout the entirety of the thing.
Sometimes twice.
And the titular Killer Meteors, it was like a mace. You know, you see like a mace is just like a stick with a spiked ball at the end. It's like one of those, but it has a spiked ball at both ends. And the spiked balls could shoot off and explode in a way that doesn't make any sense. Like they would shoot into the air and then they would home in on opponents like a cruise missile. I don't. That is the worst part. Is that is like the 8th dumbest thing about that movie. At one point, a woman took a poison that deleted her skull, like her whole head caved in. But then she got better. She took an antidote somehow afterward, after her corpse was off screen, and she got better. I still don't really understand the plot of this film. But yes, this was just spending some time. I was hoping to get to do 2, but I talk too much.
I assumed we would just get through 1 because this is about the time it takes to get through a basic character. So like it,
I can do them faster when I'm not talking. Listen, I think the movie was really bad. I do think it's worth seeing. It's interesting at least. Sometimes a bad movie's bad in a really boring way. Like a different movie that we saw recently. But I thought Killer Meteors was bad in a way where like at least you will have a story afterward.
Well, we will talk about that boring movie during like our last 10 minutes, which is what we.
I don't
that's
think
what we do.
We don't.
What?
Anyway,
Okay.
let's seg into that part of the show. Hey everybody.
Hey.
Thanks for watching. I hope y'all enjoyed just like us poking around Pathfinder and showing you a little bit of this system and some of the stuff that's cool about it, and also, you know, my joy for building characters in systems. This is basically the first thing I do when I get a hold of any RPG system is I build like 4 characters real quick, just like knock out some ideas that I get from like reading about the setting. Because I feel like that really helps connect me with like the essence of the design. You learn a lot very quickly about like what is the math that actually matters when you're building the characters. It can all seem a little abstract before that, in my opinion.
One of the first things that you did when we started dating is you told me about approximately, I don't know, 8 or 9 of your Pathfinder characters.
Okay.
And no.
I'm embarrassed.
It was really. Pardon?
I'm embarrassed.
No. It was really lovely.
People in the audience are like, "Oh, she's got no game."
No, sweetie, you got results. You got a really good game. But like it was really interesting the way that you engage with the system and the way you are able to tie in the character stuff with the mechanics, where it's all one intertwined thing. You know, that's the thing I try to do when I design a game or whatnot. But it's a different thing, you know, and it really showed me someone who is passionate about games and about TTRPGs, someone who engages with them seriously and thoughtfully and is like incredibly creative and like I mean that's a really effective way to be. You got game, hon.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Hey, and any media you've actually, speaking of media,
Yeah.
What was the music that was playing
Oh yeah.
earlier? Or is it still
So
playing? I don't know because
it is still
I
playing.
don't actually get to hear any of it. So I
We could feed you the music stream. I don't. I apologize. That's a thing we could do. Yeah, today's music has been this 12 hours of copyright free music thanks to the Relaxed Movement, whose stuff we've used before. I like their lo-fi autumn vibes. This is more of a lo-fi wintry vibe, I guess. Yeah, that's good. Also, you get to see my YouTube recommendations along the side here. Yeah, I like their stuff. It's good. I've used all of the long Kevin MacLeod pieces that I like so many times. I just needed needed something different. Yeah, so at the end of the show here, I would like to talk about just like what's some stuff that you've been into, what's some things that you've enjoyed, media and whatever, in the past week, and folks in the audience, feel free to share as well. Just like help each other find things that are rad. Amabel, has there been what's cool stuff have you been engaging with in the last week?
well, in the last week actually, well, see the thing is, all the cool stuff you also were there engaging
Yeah,
with me, right? So,
yeah, the forced
like you showed
switching.
me the end of Atlanta. Atlanta's a very good television program.
Yeah,
Big surprise there. I'm sure everyone's surprised to hear that critically acclaimed program Atlanta is good.
I think that you're going to find that a lot of people totally missed that show. I don't think it's super well known, honestly. Listen, there's a lot of TV out there, right? Nobody has time for everything. But my impression is that Atlanta flew under the radar, not like completely under the radar, but under the radar more than it should have. It definitely does not have like, a sort of like a prestige TV level of attention paid to it, which is a shame because it really is very, very good.
Yeah, so I watched that. Mostly I've been playing a lot of video games, a lot of NES games for a thing I'm doing, and I played a game called Rain World yesterday for the first time. I don't know if you've heard of Rain World.
Rain World. Tell me about Rain World. Am I saying that right? Rain World?
Rain World. Yeah. Well, you are a little cat slug thing, and you the controls are very unintuitive, and they're that way on purpose. I understand that, but I was not perhaps prepared to fully engage with the controls, and I kind of bounced off them hard. I think after I played it, I said it felt like what would happen if I try to make a video game. Because I tend to make board games that make people feel bad and upset them and are mean to them. And that's what I enjoy inflicting on other people. I don't always enjoy it being inflicted upon me. How about
You
you?
can dish it out, but you can't take it.
I can't take it.
Yeah, people in the chat are talking about Nightmare Cart, formerly known as Bloodborne Cart. I think we all knew that wasn't gonna last.
What's a Bloodborne?
What's a Bloodborne? Is the thing you just said? Okay, we don't have time for this. The thing that's important is that Nightmare Cart is a rad indie game being developed by a rad indie game developer, who I think that she just goes by Bunlith, right? Listen, I'm not on Twitter anymore. I used to follow Bunlith. The game looks rad. Bunlith seems rad. Yeah, Nightmare Cart seems cool. Check it out. Have not actually touched it myself. Cool stuff. Cool media that I've been engaging with. I've been given that that new Black Dresses album a little bit more time, a few more spins, and I've really come around on like the first half of it. I think that as a whole, it's a little bit less. It's less. I want to say it's less rough. When I say that, what I don't want to sound like I'm saying that the previous albums have like an unpolished sound, because I think their sound is very developed. Amabel Plays Bloodborne is such a good idea.
I don't even know what it is.
that you could find out. I think that the like Black Dress's sound is very developed, but it's harsher. It's intentionally less like, you know, sort of like mainstream appealy in earlier projects. In a lot of parts of Laughing Fish, I feel like it's just like an indie rock album. I don't know. It's not bad. It's just not as weird as I want it to be, I guess. But you know, it's good. It's good. And then the early parts, like I said, I've really come around on. I think I really like the first half of the album. I feel like I had something else I was going to talk about. Oh, Brockmire. Y'all heard of Brockmire? It's like a TV show that was on IFC in 2017, where Hank Azaria plays a baseball announcer who loses his job spectacularly when he has a sort of a nervous breakdown on the air after catching his wife cheating on him. He locks himself in the booth and he completely freaks out about it. And the thing is, he continues to call. I don't know how familiar y'all are with the pace of baseball. But he is able to continue calling the baseball game quite professionally, woven through his diatribe about his wife and how unfair the world is and how everything in his life is shit. And it's very entertaining. But so he gets fired. He retreats from the industry and the country in shame, basically just like disappears for a decade. Goes on a decade-long bender. And then for reasons that are made clear in the first episode, he comes back to the United States to discover that he's become sort of like he is a pariah sort of in the industry, but he's sort of a cultural icon at the same time. Like his breakdown went like super viral. Keep it Brockmire is a thing people say. And it's a story about like this man trying to negotiate that and his very bad substance abuse problems. And it feels a little like edgy comedy stuff at first. And it kind of is. It's 2017. So it's not like, it's not far enough back in the past yet for you to be like, ooh, I don't know if that was a good idea. The way that like 2000s edgy comedy is. But it develops in a really surprising way. And like it's legitimately great. There are sections of it that are legitimately great television, and it takes some wild swings as it moves on. I don't know. It's 4 seasons of 8 episodes each, so it's like 32 20-minute episodes. So not huge, compared to a lot of like prestige TV stuff. And I was really surprised by it. I absolutely loved it. That's my thing of the week. And also, we saw, what was it, VHS 94 last night, and I would recommend approximately 1/4 of that film.
I would also recommend approximately 1/4 of that film, but that 1/4 is spread across other parts of the film.
Yeah.
What was the other good movie we saw?
I see there's Spider-Man in the chat saying Reyes 2. Reyes 2 is out. I am excited to get to it. I do not want to play it before I can play it for the channel, but that's definitely coming because I don't people who've been around for a long time will remember, but it has been quite some time since it happened. That studio, Abbey Games, was playing their games was partially responsible for a lot of the early growth of my channel. Renowned Explorers in particular, I have very fond. I love their stuff. I think Godhood did not get as much attention as it deserved. I think Reyes 1 did not get as much attention as it deserved. And I'm super excited to get into Reyes 2 as soon as there is an open slot on the channel. As soon as we have time to do anything else, that's definitely coming. By Metrodon, honestly, there are parts of Brockmire that do in fact feel prophetic. I would say that is absolutely fair. And it's like Hank Azaria is just, he's wonderful in it. He's such a delight. Very funny. Amanda Pete, bloody hell. The other sort of principal character, I cannot remember his name, and I feel like a real asshole. Tyrell Jackson Williams. Is the other sort of principal actor, and he's fantastic as well. J.K. Simmons is prominently featured in one season. It's good. It's real good. Do you have anything else, Amabel, that you want to talk about? What we should talk about a little bit is Tekken.
Okay. Yeah, I've been watching some Tekken lately.
Right before the stream, we watched the top 8 from this weekend's tournament out in Melbourne. I can't remember the name of the tournament already because I'm bad at memory. But
yeah, it was a pretty good top 8.
Yeah, this is a good top 8. Like Tekken 8, I think it's come out of the gate in a really strong place. Good character diversity. It's a lot of fun to watch. I think Tekken 8 is the most interesting fighting game to play, but I have a lot of weird. There's a bunch of things I don't like in 2D games for reasons that I don't necessarily think are super valid. I know that I have a weird picky taste, and some things bother me a lot more than they should.
But you're right though, is the problem.
The one thing I will say, like Tekken is an interesting game. It's a game where you have a lot of ability to mix things up. I think it's a very intellectual fighting game, and that's like that probably sounds kind of silly. I'm sure everybody thinks that the fighting game they like most is the most intellectually interesting one. But I will say, I wish there was less juggling. I wish there was more neutral. Yeah. I think the game is most interesting at neutral, and I want more neutral, not less neutral. But the game does have a considerable amount of juggling.
Yeah. See, and this is why I like playing with you, because I don't know how to juggle, so I'm able to give you more of the experience you want.
And I refuse to learn good follow-ups. In our matches, there's a lot of neutral. So yeah, anyway, that's us talking about a lot of things. We could. Here's the thing: I don't really know anything about any fighting games except for Tekken. So Amabel actually is much more knowledgeable about fighters than I am.
I'm a little bit. Yeah, I knowledgeable enough that like I never got good at the 2D fighters, but then like I fell in love with Tekken because Tekken just clicked with me and was intuitive in ways that the 2D fighters really aren't for me. But I do know some stuff from like I only have played a lot of 2D fighters lately, and I playing a lot of the SNK fighters.
Yeah,
kind of the lower level ones, the ones that kind of. Like, no one plays Fatal Fury 3. I'm sorry. And they shouldn't. It's not very good. But, so I know some things, I've always been fascinated by them. And really, a lot of the things I do in my 2-player board game design, where it's very much, if they do this, I'll do that. And it's, like, about control, momentum, control of the match. Like, it's stuff that I think about fighting games a lot and always have. Like, I pull from that to a degree, and it's probably why they're not very popular, because fighting games are very niche.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Anyway, I think that's us. Thank y'all for this was a real experimental one. This stream is gonna kind of be like that sometimes. I hope everybody enjoyed watching me talk about words on the screen for 2 hours. We'll probably play some video games in the next one. That's what I think is gonna happen.
Yeah, you're supposed to show me the Toe Jam and Earl.
Yeah, we're probably it's probably the case that next week is gonna be Genesis game time. But yeah, thank y'all so much for coming. I hope that we have been fun to hang out with for a couple of hours here. And there's not been a lot of stuff on the channel. I meant to really like get into this a little bit. Too late now. But there's not been a lot of releases on the channel this week because I spent several days wrestling with new hard drives, new operating system, fresh installs of stuff because I had some hard drives fail. It's coming to an end. We're gonna get back on schedule. Videos are coming out. Everything's settled now. I think everything's fixed. So yeah, thank y'all for watching this, and check the channel later today for more videos. I think, and yeah, we'll see you then.
Bye.